Okay, let's go right back to Alan Watt, breaking down exactly who these elite are. And again, they've written thousands of books on it, thousands of papers, and they laugh and say, look at the slave scum. They can't even read what we're saying we're going to do to them. And they say that's prima facie evidence. I've had, as I know, had Alan, elitist, say, Alex, look, you tell them and they don't even listen to you. See, you need to join us. And I say, listen, I'm a nurtured person. I know what I do to others comes back on me. You people are evil. And you've helped dumb people down. You've accelerated the domestication and the institutionalization of the public. And this is a great crime against life, against our species, against humanity. And they just snicker. Or they act sad and go, well, you just don't know the law of nature, do you? We're just doing something inevitable. If we didn't act like this, somebody else would. Alan Watt.
Yeah, that's exactly how they rationalize it. As I say, through the Darwinian studies of different species and so on, they go down through the sea urchins and all of these things in different groups that came down through the ages. They've never found missing links, but that's not the point. The point is things go extinct. And we do have evidence of that. Different animals go extinct. So they put man in the same category, and they couch it in phases or stages of mankind, from the early types to the present type. And they truly believe that they themselves, because they're up there in academia, they're in the sciences, they have positions of power and control, they believe they're a separate species, that they have evolved. And the old types that used to work in factories and so on during the 20th century are now obsolete and have to go. And they even rationalize why they must go according to the laws of this Darwinian theory, that if the old type come into the new system, they'll overwhelm the elite who have got evolved even higher and bring down that high group. That's what they truly believe. This is identical to Hinduism. Hinduism goes through this. And I think that's the connecting link between much of higher Freemasonry and this New World Order. In Hinduism, they believe there are cycles in nature that last millions of years, different phases. They call them ages. And at the end of each age, those that evolve, remember, they start from slime into amoebas and through animals, through transmigration of souls and all this kind of stuff. And eventually they get to this advanced type, and they go on into the next wave while the old type dies off. It's identical to Darwinism, and you have to ask yourself, did Darwinism come first, or did they simply copy the Hinduistic philosophies?
Or the Babylonian mystical religions is the same thing. Transhumanist, now the low-level kind of porch transhumanists like porch masons don't know or haven't read the real dogma, but Aldous Huxley's brother, the head UN eugenicist, the head eugenicist worldwide at the time, he said we've got to change to transhumanism. So transhumanism, the founder of it says it is the new name for eugenics. And he says, and now they say at these big eugenics conferences, transhumanist conferences they have, or posthumanists, they say, you will take brain chips, you will evolve into the cybernetic, if we even let you, if you prove your worth, and all the rest of you will die because you're not evolving. And so, we face it on that front.
Yes, as I say, it's all out in the open today. And what's interesting, too, is their use of words or linguistics. Some call it psycholinguistics. And some of the neurosciences call it neurolinguistics, by the use of different words to cover up the same agenda that used to be called eugenics. The general population are using those new words thinking it's all okay. They can't relate it to what it used to mean. It's the same thing as having a communist society, and as long as no one at the top mentions communism, no one will see it for what it really is. So we tend to get stuck on words, and we can't see beyond that. Today they call it this globalization, but it is a Sovietized world system they're bringing in. It's a communistic system they're bringing in for the masses. Now, communism, or the Soviet system, was created by the West. It did not originate in the Soviet Union or Russia. Its whole theory was that man was an animal that could be trained to go in any direction whatsoever through scientific means and indoctrination and using conditioned responses. They could take them to wherever whatever they wanted them to be. Lenin himself said, he said, we shall decide what kind of culture to give the public, which is good for the party. And if that culture becomes obsolete or doesn't serve the party, we'll then change the entire culture again. In other words, all of reality will keep changing and be updated, and the public will accept it like a computer program being upgraded. That's exactly how they're treating the public today, and unfortunately it's working very well.
Alan Watt, long segment coming up. When we start the next hour, we'll go directly to your phone calls. If you want to get lined up, 800-259-9231. Stay with us. Alan Watt, let's get into what the establishment is doing with genetic engineering. I have interviewed and, of course, read hundreds and hundreds of news stories and reports, as I know you have, top scientists in genetic engineering who were for it until they found out that, well, I changed one gene in a tomato or potato, and it gets the change I want, but it randomly, each life cycle, changes hundreds, if not thousands, of things randomly and creates new amino acids, new chemicals, new components, new ring structures, new enzymes that are very, very toxic to other life forms that consume it or come in contact with it. The establishment knows that. They are testing in the open ocean new forms of chemical-eating bacteria, oil slick-eating bacteria, which in studies they admit could start replicating and, could create global red tides that could possibly kill a lot of the life in the ocean. That's, one little example. Or these cross species where they put human genes in a pig so they can get heart valves out of it, or grow, which they know, which they admit they're doing, but they keep a lot of it, the details quiet for at least a decade, BBC reports. Humanoids, part human, part bovine, part cow, so they can grow the embryos up to full baby size so they can harvest organs. We know that's going on. Part chimpanzee, part human, part human, part goat, part spider. Or they have some transgenic organisms that have over 200 different species, plant, animal, jellyfish. They're selling on the open market cats that glow in the dark, monkeys that glow in the dark, that have jellyfish skin. And you tell the public, they laugh and giggle and say that doesn't exist. But even though it's on the market, just thousands of things randomly going on, huge facilities randomly with gene guns, firing different genetics into plants, animals, sea life, openly releasing them. Now there's many areas of the world more GMO salmon than there are the other salmon. They're now out competing them. Removing them, and then they have breeding problems, and then it shows down the line have genetic problems after so many replications, after so many life cycles. I mean, there's just millions of problems. I could go on for hours. And the elite are not gods. They know this stuff can get out of control. And I have some of these quotes in Endgame, top transhumanists, top globalists saying, we don't care. In fact, if we get bored, we may just nuke the planet because of the power of killing ourselves and destroying the species forever. It's so beautiful. And Lenin said, I would love to he would write poems about destroying the earth and killing everyone and how beautiful it would be. So really, they're not survival of the fittest. A true fittest would understand the species, have love for it, would have compassion, would be endowed, that strain of our species with understanding how dangerous this all is, moving carefully with it, trying to empower everyone, trying to lift the species to a higher level, peacefully, trying to colonize space instead of dumbing down, hoarding, controlling, poisoning, and endangering the entire biosphere. And that's a long 2-minute question. Specifically, with that whole field of information, I see them as actually very aberrant and self-destructive, and in their own words, they admit that. So they need to be removed from power right now. They're mid-level servants who are just into the power trip of killing 90% and running things. I don't think they've studied their own master's blueprint, that really at the end of the day, they just want to kill everybody, including themselves.
It's possible, but what I've also noticed, too, for many years, is that whatever's released to the public to do with science is generally obsolete. By the time we get a hold of the information, there's a much higher level of science that they can. But when you understand that Huxley himself wrote Brave New World in 1933, with all of that data to do with genes and so on, long before they really discovered the genes, we are told. They were still teaching in the 70s, the 60s and 70s in medicine that they suspected that genes lived on chromosomes, but they couldn't prove it. And yet here's Huxley writing in 1933 about a science that had not even come in at that time in the general universities.
And mass drugging of the public and forced abortions and total control,
yes.
What they're now setting up. Go ahead.
And it's the same when you break it down to genes to do with the Human Genome Project. Basically, that thing was on the go before they were so advanced in understanding the genes. So who was telling the truth? The ones who are doing the research at the bottom and learning it all over again, or a much higher group above them that already knows all of this stuff? And what we find with the elite too, they have incredible faith, absolute faith in their own ingenuity, and with the use of science, they believe they can go on forever, indefinitely. And I think that at a very high level, they've ironed all of these problems out. They talk about reseeding the planet if need be. They have warehouses, storehouses, where they have all the genes of the entire planet, of plant, insects, animal, and so on.
So they have the giant underground labyrinths that they admit they have. Lord knows what they have that we're not aware of, and so they're prepared for that. And that may be even in their plan, is to wreck everything to then rebuild it.
It could very well be. I remember watching one of the Star Trek movies, and remember Gene Roddenberry was a member of NASA. So he
the Genesis
knew
Project. The Genesis Project, yeah.
And he was also a member of the First Earth Army to start the greening process for conservation and really to conserve humans. And so he wrote it into that. And they had one episode in one of the movie versions where they call it the Genesis Project, where they reseeded a whole planet and started it off from scratch. And these characters didn't dream up this stuff. They already had plans to do this kind of thing if they needed to do it on planet Earth itself. And I am certain that if by some fluke they don't get their way, because they do hold all the powers or the reins of power across the planet today, if they don't get their way, they will have something up their sleeves where they would go ahead and pull this off, because they truly have utter faith in their own ability and acquired knowledge of sciences that's hidden from the public. We, as I say, we get obsolete stuff at the bottom level. That's why they call it research. It's been done before at a higher level. So,
we'll take Ian Fleming. I mentioned this yesterday. In the early 50s, he writes his second book, James Bond, Moonraker, where the elite are going to kill everybody, go to a space station, and then come back, and after the biological weapons killed everyone, and reseat with the eugenic superculture. This is a high-level MI6 agent, OSS agent, and then now their newest James Bond is where there's a fake global environmental group using fake carbon taxes to bring in a world tyranny. They're just flaunting it in our face.
Yes, they are flaunting it in our face. And it's interesting, the World Wildlife Fund has what they call 3 arcs on the planet. One of them is in Louisiana. And in there they have cryogenics with, again, every possible gene from every possible animal, insect, etc., in those particular arcs. And they said, and this program is a public broadcasting program with a professor who's in charge of that particular one arc. She said there's 3, that this will be used if anything happened to planet Earth. They can reseed the planet with everything that they have there. And they've tested this stuff out. They have brought ovum and sperm together from different creatures, and they've inserted them into other types of creatures and successfully brought them to term. So they can literally breed any kind of animal or even a human inside another animal if need be, and bring it to term after being stored in cryogenics for who knows how long.
So we're talking about dolphins with human brains, or just it's endless. Well, I agree with what you just said. I believe that, we know that they're at least 30, 40 years ahead, and that's exponential. And so that's why they're so arrogant now. In the time frame, how do you see them with the soft kill weapons? They've already turned up the ambient background with the soft kill weapons, with the cancer viruses, with the barium and aluminum spraying on the public, with their operations worldwide. Go through the next 10 years and then out. And I understand this is a projection from your deep research. But I've done my separate research, and that's why I'm always so impressed with is that you're always on the same line and even bring it further in many cases. That's why we're so honored to have you, Alan. And I just really respect your intellect and research on this because I've come to the same organic analysis as you are here with my discernment. And discernment's really just your full mind capacity, the electrochemical computer you have, listeners, integrating all the information.